Okay, so what do you remember about Wyomissing Creek Trail and the Stone House? You remember how we used to suck on the honeysuckle flowers when we would go by the Stone House? Down along the museum road, stuff like that. Yeah. So were all those things there before? I heard you could ice skate on the pond in front of the Stone House back in the day.
Yeah,
When was that era? Do you remember?
when I was about 14 years old,
Yeah.
which was 65.
Yeah. And the other thing is, like, how were you affected by like the civil rights movement? Was there a strong portion of the civil rights movement in Reading, or did Reading people mostly stay out of that?
Uh, yeah, some
Mm-hmm.
things were more easy to
Mm-hmm.
criticize
Yeah.
because anybody who was really corrupt
Mm-hmm.
and openly
Mm-hmm.
corrupt,
Mm-hmm.
they're not.
Okay.
You're not
So,
going to tell somebody.
so how about like housing discrimination and the rate of homelessness? Did you have a lot of homeless people back then, or was everybody housed for the most part?
No,
No, nobody living in a tent along the Schuylkill River, correct? And the shelters weren't full, and there weren't people, being transients going from Reading to Philly to Lancaster to York, blah blah blah.
Well,
Nothing like that.
there's just a lot of underground stuff going on
Yeah,
that favored one group more than another, And
right.
to me, it was a sort of a hodgepodge
Hmm.
because
But I mean, was there good housing stock, and was there much gentrification? Were there movements to get, say, wealthier people to come into Center City, Reading?
the federal government had
Mhm.
um, the was that when you
Hmm.
fix up an area.
Yeah, community development. Yeah.
Yeah,
So did Pennsylvania have a
one of
Department of Community and Economic Development back
I
then?
don't really have it, but one of my neighbors was head of it. He
Yeah.
lived right near me in Pottsville,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and he was in there a long time, I believe,
Hmm.
but he was.
Yeah. Say one thing I wanted to ask you about again. Tell me about those times when you had to do that really risky cross over the road to nowhere on your bike. When it wasn't limited access. Do you remember when all those roads around AAA weren't cut off by the bypass? You remember that? You were saying some of that traffic could go up to like 50 or 60 miles an hour, and you'd have to look for an opening and just, wing it and run across, something like that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And you feel, okay, so you notice how a lot of neighborhoods around the city of Reading are sort of like cut off. Because, like, there's that Spring Street neighborhood around AAA, and there's also the Allegheny Avenue neighborhood, um, around where I used to live at Berkshire Gardens Apartments back in 2009. And then, and there's so many of those roads that are cut off. I lived on a stub of Allegheny Avenue when I was living with Kevin Connell there. And then there's also I think is it called the Fox Chase neighborhood or something like that? The one that's around Jim Dietrich Park. Have you ever been to Jim Dietrich Park? Anyway, or Kelly Park. That neighborhood around there. There's only one way to get into it and one way out. Um, yeah. Do you know what I'm talking about?
And
Kelly Park, Kelly's Landing. See, because on the other side of the woods there, it is the airport, but there's nothing that goes through to the airport road. I tried to bring this to the attention of some people, but they won't listen. And the only way to say to travel west is to go south on 61 into the city, and then go west from there. Along 422 or whatever. Do you ever wish that there was a better bypass, like going from like Reading to Lebanon, or like do you ever wish that 61 had more lanes and it was faster, to get to Pottsville and stuff like that? What would you do about road infrastructure around the Reading area if you could? Hello? Hello? What would you do about road infrastructure around Reading if you could? What new highways would you build?
Some people are not too wise.
Yeah.
They're
Oh.
wiser than I've been.
Yeah. Hey, do you want me to put your shorts back on?
Yeah.
Because they're falling down. Okay. Okay. Oh. Okay. All right. Yeah.
Well, it surprised me that they granted all those
Yeah.
building permits
Mm-hmm.
and the new elementary school
Yeah.
by the mall,
Mm-hmm.
how could they build all those
Mm-hmm.
when they knew they were gonna have to probably tear them apart and
Mm-hmm.
try to build a new highway that.
Yeah. Oh, there is a thing along Lancaster Avenue. It's a placard called "The Dead Have No Rights," and they said how after the railroad moved out, then they were going to put in the bypass, but there was a graveyard right there at the entrance to the tent, and so they, by some kind of court order, they eventually moved some of the gravestones and stuff like that. But there's a descendant of somebody who was involved in moving those gravestones, and he said it's likely that there are still some bodies underneath the bypass because they didn't remove everybody's grave from there, or resting place where they might have not had a gravestone. So yeah, and that's the thing. It's always iffy, when people like transition from like railroad right of way to bypass right of way, because railroads aren't necessarily willing to give up stuff right away for like other transportation implements. Like for example, back in your day, they have the whole Schuylkill River Trail as we know it, or was it still essentially the Pennsy line supposedly? Because like supposedly the Pennsy and the Reading were like competing railroads running right alongside each other basically. And then supposedly the Pennsy line became what's now the Schuylkill River Trail. Going past the Brentwood Corporation and then passing by the Angelica Creek, where now they have also the Angelica Creek Trail going to the Alvernia campus, going right through the Alvernia campus, in fact. And then what else? And then of course, Schuylkill River Trail goes all the way to Pottstown. And then if you go on the roads for a while in Pottstown, then you can get on the rest of the Schuylkill River Trail, which takes you to Manduck. So question for you. How good of access did you have to Philly when you were in Reading? What was it like? How many trains did they have per day, and how often? Do you remember?
When Reading was still around, you mean? Already.
Yeah. But back in your day, when the Reading Railroad was still around.
Well, that gets into geographic.
How long did it take to travel from Reading to Philly back in the day? Back in the 70s? How long did it take? Because Mom said you used to use the push pull
Yeah,
train.
it only took about an hour.
Yeah,
Um,
and it was pretty convenient, right? They had a train every hour, right?
Yeah, well, that's every time you have a train track system and all,
Yeah.
you got to maintain
Mm-hmm.
it and put new things in
Yeah.
and keep repairing the
Mm-hmm.
neutral cracks and stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
also, sometimes you have to put a
Mhm.
toll road in.
Yeah. Oh, did you know that that there was actually a plan to toll Route 81? They never ended up doing it, but it's been considered in Pennsylvania.
Well, I think that's part. I don't know a lot about that, but I
Mhm.
have heard about. But I think that part of it is that the 81
Mm-hmm.
is an essential road that the federal government.
Right.
Uh,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
is
did you know
involved in
there's actually like a consortium of municipal planning organizations going all the way from like our area, Pennsylvania, all the way up through uh, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Maine, and stuff like that. All of these different MPOs that they have to work together because they have to consider that traffic from down in central Pennsylvania and eastern Pennsylvania, lower eastern Pennsylvania, will undoubtedly end up in other parts of the Northeast region, the New England region. Because, I mean, trucking companies are regional, so they have to plan for freight, and they also have to plan for potential conversion of freight trucks to electric rather than diesel. There's also all these maintenance considerations, that barter buses have to go through, efficiency standards, if you will. Um, yeah, I just thought I'd mention that. So like back in your day, what was the farthest place that barter would go?
I don't think they had one.
Oh, they didn't have barter yet, huh?
No, I
Yeah.
don't think they had the buses.
No?
They have to Reading. They didn't live in mixing Reading and Berks County. That's what they seem to.
Yeah.
And it is.
So what kind of transportation did you have? Like, I guess you still had, trains going up to 1981, but you couldn't at that point take a train, say from Reading to Lancaster at that point, right? Because like I do know there was supposed to be like some sort of like Adamstown and Moulton Railway at some point that that got started in like I don't know the 50s or something like that. Because the Reading Railroad had built that track, but like I don't think it was very long lived. Right? Do you ever remember a set of tracks going between Reading and Lancaster? By the way, the but some of those tracks are now the effort of the Warwick Rail Trail. Um, so what do you think is involved in say trying to turn old rail lines into rail trails? You ever hear of any of that back in your day? Or even I don't know, like the 80s. Were there any efforts was Schuylkill River Greenway Association in existence back then? You know what a greenway is, right?
Yeah. they had. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I know they're trying to
Mm-hmm.
build some
Mm-hmm.
walking trails and bicycle trails.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, how good was the recreation facilities back then, or how good were the recreation facilities? Nolly Forest was there, right? I remember you were saying that you could get on a trail in Nolly Forest and you would end up in Angelica, correct? And that was the farthest you ever hiked, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, Logan was kind of a secret. There was a lot of secrets in
Mm-hmm.
Reading and Berks County.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think things are a little more open, but
Mm-hmm.
the people of Reading were a little bit put off with putting things that go through their property. They didn't like. And you
Okay.
can see why.
You know what? In the record for the ordinances in writing, there were a lot of people who say would donate their property to the city of Reading. Well, not donate, but like they get some kind of compensation. Like if Reading wanted to build, say, a water facility in the suburbs, then then that person would cede their property to the city. Um, and where there were cases where, say, roads would have been extended, but they would be extended through somebody's property, and then somebody would, give up that property so the road could be extended through it. And then, of course, there were also situations where roads were cut off as well, where somebody wanted to build a house there and then make that the end of the road. There are situations like that all the time. Um, we were talking a lot in planning commission about street vacations. Um, and so there were sometimes discrepancies as to, like, say, if the whole street was going to be vacated, or like maybe the east side of the street or the west side of the street was going to be vacated, and we had to get it applied to the entirety of the width of the street, stuff like that, depending on who wanted to build where. Yeah. So anyway, I think we should consult this video again. Yeah, of course. I've seen that.
When Tara's mom, she has a big giant house. That house could house.
He's talking about our friend Tara and like.
Well, that's the thing. See, Tara would like to have control of that house because then she, run it out to a whole bunch of people,
No, she wouldn't.
Oh, she wouldn't?
She would have all the homeless people in the place, and it would go to hell.
Well, wait a minute. Isn't it pretty cluttered up to begin with? I mean, like, okay, but let me take a step back. But I told you that you ought to get rid of like 3/4 of your stuff, that, like I did, because I mean, even though you feel emotionally attached to all those things, the thing is, once you get rid of all that stuff, you have to.
All right, two more questions. How did you feel overall about moving from Pennsylvania to Arizona? How did it affect you, like, to have to get rid of a lot of your stuff like that?
Well, when you're getting older, and you realize you can't handle a whole lot of projects at one time,
Yeah.
you have to cut back anyway, so that's not.
And do you feel that it sort of cleared up your mind by giving away a lot of your possessions and stuff like that? I mean, it wasn't, voluntarily for you. I mean, you had no choice because you had to move, but
Well, we did get the right amount of space, I think. But getting along with new people in a new area,
Yeah.
you may find your views are different in some respect, and
Yeah.
you have the same problems you have
Yeah.
more eastern Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
southeastern Pennsylvania.
Well, did you still feel that when you were in the Reamstown area that you were still essentially part of the Reading community because you could still go there? You know, like you didn't necessarily feel as much part of the Lancaster community, even though when we would call AAA, they'd insist we talk to the Lancaster covering people rather than the Reading covering people because when we were in Reamstown, we were in Lancaster County rather than in Berks County. Remember that? So you still felt connected to Reading when we were living in Reamstown, correct?
Well, I don't know. Reading was always a
I mean, for me, it was kind of stressful in the long run to be stuck out in Reamstown because it was in the middle of nowhere. I understand you wanted to have, you know, religious neighbors, people who you could trust and stuff like that. You know, but it just, you know, without having a reliable vehicle early on or good public transit from, you know, that area of Lancaster County, you know, I felt really stranded, really disconnected from both Lancaster and Reading. I mean, we were just like right in the middle, you know.
yeah, that's
But yeah, like compare and contrast Lancaster and Reading. Did you not like Lancaster as much as you like Reading? Because like Richard sure doesn't like Lancaster as much as he liked Reading. He doesn't even know why he moved to Lancaster. I mean, other than some friend got him to go there. But anyway, that's a long story. I remember you said you never liked Route 30 when going through Lancaster. You hated Route 30. What's the difference between Route 30 and Route 422?
Route 30 has always been increasing action and increasing commerce.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of danger to the people that travel Route 30.
Yeah. You think it's too built up? Do you think it has, you know, too many exits or
when
something?
they showed what they were building, especially I don't like the part that's east of
Mm-hmm.
east of
Mm-hmm.
the main.
Oh, you mean like going out towards going out towards like Downingtown and Coatesville and stuff like that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that area is terrible. There they have restaurants with
Mhm.
entrances that people are bound to get
Oh,
killed on.
you're talking about the tourist trap area, right? The Amish tourist trap area?
I think
Lincoln Highway Park? Yeah. Yeah. Where it goes from limited access to like full commercial highway, right?
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's really dangerous.
Yeah, Dutch Wonderland and Waffle House and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And like all those Amish attractions, like the Amish house and farm, and then of course everybody, you know, making that turn by the Lincoln Highway Walmart to go to Strasburg Railroad and stuff. Yeah, that is a really messy area. I do wish they could fix that up somehow, but
So
I just don't know how they do it.
they had an easier thing to fix, but they did fix the
Mm-hmm.
western part
Mm-hmm.
of Lancaster there.
Yeah.
Route 30 pretty well. They fixed it pretty well.
Oh, yeah. Maybe took some traffic off of 462 because I know 462 could be a headache to drive too. But also 23 could be somewhat of a headache to drive on like the New Holland side, and what else? And then of course Route 340. You know, especially at the intersection near the Lancaster Hack campus. You know, coming out King Street. those stoplights seem to take forever. You ever drive those before?
You know, I know that they built that, community college to make it
Mm-hmm.
somewhat safer for them. So that was great, you know.
So are you saying that, the community college was a partner who was willing to, help pay for like, intersection improvements around that area along Philadelphia Pike?
I think they might have.
Mhm.
I don't know.
They call that the Bridgeport neighborhood, by the way. Not to be confused with the Bridgeport that's near Norristown. Anyway, yeah. Hey, do you want me to help you out again? You're falling out of your chair again. Okay. Well, anyway, we should probably go eat at this point, because Mom's been telling us it's time to eat. Okay, yep, all right.